Okay, so this is not going to be a spoiler video or anything like that. I'm still going through my playthrough of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I am thoroughly enjoying it as I cross the 85-hour mark into the 90-hour mark, and really nowhere near done, but I am making more progress through the game, and I'm just really enjoying it. A lot of you guys' comments on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 when I go to the comment section is really cool. Seems like a lot of you guys enjoy the game. Many of you are talking about things that you like, what you don't like, whatever the case is. And it's awesome to hear this much discussion about Xenoblade that's not completely centered around like Pyra, Mithra, Booba Sword or some stupid nonsense like that. So this is definitely a good thing for Xenoblade, the fans, Monolith Soft, whatever it is. But I feel that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really at this point has a realistic shot at what we're going to discuss, and that's Game of the Year. There's new things that have developed when it comes to the game now that more people are beating it, and once again, there will be no spoilers. There's new information, there's new, I would just say, viability that the game has, because the story, you've been hearing it. It's peak fiction, it's awesome. So do I think that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is going to win a lot of Game of the Year awards over Elden Ring or over God of War Ragnarok? Probably not. But does it have a realistic shot at getting some nominations and winning some Game of the Year awards? Yes, I definitely think so. And we're going to discuss a lot of this stuff in just a bit. Before we do, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's talk about this because there have been a number of things that I think aid Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in getting some nominations and maybe even low-key Game of the Year award here or there. There's been a lot of game delays. Multiple games have been delayed out of this year that could have been pretty good or reviewed really high. The new Firaxis game, Marvel Midnight Suns, I know people weren't super high on that game, but it looked very solid. And Firaxis, they did XCOM, they've made Game of the Year style quality games before, so you can't ever count them out. We also have the Hogwarts Legacy game that was looking really good and was a big game backed by Sony when it comes to a marketing deal. That game got pushed out of 2022, so those were both potential Game of the Year candidates. In years past, a game like Fire Emblem Three Houses or a game like Astral Chain, these are the type of games that would potentially knock out Nintendo's other style of games that aren't Mario or Zelda or Super Smash Brothers or have Mario or Zelda in there. So it's very cool. Not that those games got delayed, obviously that's bad for the fans, but it might be a good thing for the fans because you're going to get a better quality game. But it's cool for Xenoblade that it gets more spotlight. Like, those are two big, RPGs that were coming out later in the year that now more people might try Xenoblade Chronicles 3, because if it does get nominations, people are going to say, okay, it got a nomination at the Game Awards, it got a nomination from IGN, it got a nomination from wherever these different sites are. Now more people are going to get into the game or potentially buy it or at least look at more stuff with it, because Xenoblade Chronicles needs all the marketing and advertisement that it can get. Now we also have to mention the Metacritic review scores here. This is also very important, because Metacritic, you can't use it as the be-all end-all to judge what you ultimately love or what's better than something else. But to sit here and act like Metacritic doesn't play a part into what people could potentially buy, that's just disingenuous, because it does. It plays a huge factor into what people buy or purchase or talk about, because you hear people talking about, okay, Xenoblade, and then you go to the reviews and it kind of somewhat solidifies or it backs up what some of the gamers are saying about that when you see this really high review score. And also you have to look at it. This is the highest reviewing Xenoblade game in the past 3 releases, between Xenoblade Chronicles X, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. And even if you want to count Torna in there as DLC, the last 4 Xenoblade releases, this is the highest reviewed one, even reviewing higher than Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, just barely. But that's still a very big deal, because people consider Xenoblade Chronicles, the original, to be the best game. Many people feel that it's still the best game out of all of them, and it balances story, gameplay, all of that different stuff into one better than all of them. But I would be hard-pressed to find many people, now after playing Xenoblade Chronicles 3, that truly feel that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 is much better. Some people say maybe it's equal, but a lot of people are saying that it's actually better than Xenoblade Chronicles 1 because of various things that we're going to discuss as well that helps the potential Game of the Year nods that it's getting. But there's some drawbacks, but we're going to talk about that in just a bit. Now, if you look at some of the other things here, guys, quality of life options, that's obviously something that is big and is helping Xenoblade Chronicles 3's case. You know, now that I've been playing it more, I'm seeing more of these quality of life options. Difficulty levels is huge, especially for reviewers out there, but also stuff like the field skills, that was a problem in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Gem collecting and crafting, that was a problem in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, the original, and even the definitive edition. You have these different ether cylinders, you have to collect them, and there's micromanaging. I mean, that's the biggest problem, or at least one of the biggest problem with Xenoblade games in the past, and that's all of them, is the micromanaging was just too much. And this is something that I've said before. You're micromanaging items way too much, you're micromanaging equipment way too much, you're micromanaging gems, you're micromanaging every single little thing in your party and equipment wise, which brings a lot of depth when it comes to certain things, but also wastes a lot of time as well. Whereas Xenoblade Chronicles 3, this is the least amount of time that I have spent micromanaging weapons and items ever. Still have to micromanage some stuff like classes and arts and all that, but that's far more streamlined and a lot quicker, and it even saves your loadout when you switch back and forth. So I think that the quality of life options and some of the stuff that they did to improve or streamline the game is definitely going to be a big factor now at this point. Now, once again, we've talked about this before in terms of it having a shot at winning Game of the Year, but I think that now it's a lot better at this point now that people are actually getting further in, and I wanted to kind of get like a status update with a lot of you guys and how you feel about it as well, comparing it to previous Xenoblade Chronicles games and also comparing it to what Monolith Soft has done before. So I am going to ask that question when it comes down to it. We can talk about that in just a bit. But I do want to go over some good friends of mine as well. You know, Gene Park over at the Washington Post. I've been on his page before when it comes to the write-ups that he does have. He's a fantastic friend of the channel as well. And he had this to say. This is someone who's crazy about Elden Ring just earlier this year. He says, quote, "Xenoblade 3 might for real be my game of the year over Elden Ring. Elden Ring is an incredible achievement, but I'm walking away from Xenoblade 3 happier and more fulfilled and admiring the totality of its vision." That is a big statement from someone who's been playing games for a long time, and all I saw on his timeline was Elden Ring this, Elden Ring that, Elden Ring, and rightfully so. Elden Ring is fantastic. It's a great game and is probably going to win the majority of Game of the Year votes out there from various different people, just because the game sold like insane numbers. Just so many people have played it. It's been like a cultural phenomenon when it comes to gamers and even the expanded audience a bit with Elden Ring. So I'm not denying that, but it's just cool to see that Xenoblade is in the conversation, like I said, when it comes to nominations, because those are important as well. I mean, yes, you can't always win them all, but getting nominations is a very good thing. So I also want to move over to one of the other friends of the channel, HMK. Shout out to my man HMK, and he actually just recently beat Xenoblade, and he said, "What an amazing stream, everyone. We beat Xenoblade 3. Now this is my game of the year, hands down." And of course, you have to have all of the caps on there. So what you're seeing is that a lot of people who did say Elden Ring was my game of the year, which, you know, HMK also said that as well. So once again, I'm not saying that it's way better or anything like that. What I'm saying is that some of the mindshare out there of press or of the gamers is saying, hey, wait a minute, Xenoblade belongs in the conversation, and that's all I'm looking at here. It belongs in the conversation. I think that the story, the pacing, the way that it's easier to play, these are all factors that are helping Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really jump up in people's eyes now that we're further down the line. Because I've made various different videos saying that it maybe has a shot, what's going on, Game of the Year candidate, and now it's getting closer and closer to that reality as long as people still keep talking about it and everything. Now, I have to ask this question because this is something that I think that is interesting, and we'll probably have another video on this, but is this the best Xenoblade Chronicles game of all time? You know, I'm not finished with it, and the story is already incredibly good, just like all the Xenoblade games. I haven't played a Xenoblade game with a bad story, with the exception of Xenoblade Chronicles X, and even then, that game had its moments in the story as well. But pretty much all of the main trilogy Xenoblade Chronicles games and the expansions, or whatever else you want to call them, all of those have super peak fiction, great cutscenes, great cinematics, great story, and everything. So if you combine what they've done with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, how they did the story and everything, the quality of life, the pacing, how does it stack up? How does it compare to the previous Xenoblade games? What is the order that you put it at? Is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 the best game when it comes to the series? I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Once again, I'm not finished, but now that I'm 85 hours plus, almost 90 hours in, I have to sit here and say I haven't had more fun playing a Xenoblade game than Xenoblade Chronicles 3. There's never been a time that I've ever enjoyed Xenoblade more than at this point. Now, there's more to a Xenoblade game than just the gameplay. The story is very important, the music is very important, the visual style is very important. There's lots of things, but every single area that I look at when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I see, okay, 3 is better here, 3 is better there, 3 is better there, 3 is better there. Now, there's some other things. So, for example, I would say like the towns, maybe some people feel that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 1 maybe will handle that a little bit better, mainly more like 2. But I feel that that is a small concession compared to how the open world and the layout and the navigation, there's so many things that kind of overpower Xenoblade Chronicles 3 over 2 when it comes to game design. I think I can take, okay, yeah, the towns or whatever aren't quite as monumentous and structured, but the open world is well done and so highly crafted and done in a way to where things connect, and it's just great. And how you navigate that open world is just so much better done as well. Like the whole field skill stuff was just a nightmare in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So I think that it kind of overpowers it, if you know what I'm saying on that one. But yeah, I'd have to give the nod right now to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Now, if something happens later and it changes, I'll definitely say that. But I mean, I'm currently just leveling up classes. I'm fighting elite monsters. I'm just loving what you can do with the variety of the battle system. I mean, it really is awesome. Everything just feels seamless. The quick options, the quick menus, being able to have the show quest line that goes through. Everything in this game has just hit that stride and hit that chord for me and enjoy the game. But honestly, man, I'm just having a blast. And I think that this conversation around people bringing it up when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Game of the Year, I mean, we haven't had that since the original Xenoblade Chronicles, you know, and even then that was kind of looked down upon because of the Operation Rainfall effect and because it came out so late in the life of the Wii and the graphics weren't HD. But now we finally have that game that is reviewed high enough to really get into that conversation as a more niche franchise compared to something like Elden Ring or compared to something like Horizon Forbidden West or some of these other big games that make the list every single year. So very interesting to see, and it's going to be even more interesting how things play out. But once again, I'm going to give the nod to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 right now, and I'm hoping that it continues on this blistering pace. But pretty much everybody who's beaten the game, you know, with no spoilers here, has said this is peak fiction, this is the greatest, this is the best one. I mean, there are some people who do feel differently, you know, when it comes to Xenoblade 1 or how the pacing is in that game or the length or some of the over leveling stuff that I've heard and all of that. But I have to take it from an all ranging aspects without the nostalgia goggles, because I think sometimes nostalgia goggles can blind all of us. Heck, I have been, you know, part of that as well. I think that's part of the reason why for me Chrono Trigger is still like untouchable, with the exception of potentially Xenoblade 3 once I beat it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that we're all gamers and we all just like to discuss and enjoy and play games and have great games. And at the end of the day, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a phenomenal game that, based on what's came out this year, is definitely in the conversation, and more so now at this point than it ever was, especially with multiple delays of various different big games and more people kind of getting into it and playing it and talking about it online, which is awesome just to see that. But what are your thoughts when it comes to Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Does it have a realistic shot at Game of the Year and the best Xenoblade Chronicles game of all time? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we'll see you for the next video. Peace.